I never thought I'd be the one writing something like this, but after everything that happened, I realized some truths are too heavy to carry alone. So here I am, sitting in my tiny apartment in Austin at 2 in the morning, with a glass of wine that's been empty for an hour, just staring at the ceiling. My name is Morgan. I'm 28 years old, and 6 months ago, I lost my grandfather. 3 months ago, I lost my fiancé. And last week, I lost the last bit of naivete I had about my own family. I grew up on a ranch outside of Boerne, Texas, about an hour from San Antonio. My grandpa Jack bought that land in 1972, with nothing but a 5th-grade education and a work ethic that would make a mule cry. He built the main house with his own hands. He raised cattle. He grew hay. He was the kind of man who woke up at 4 in the morning every single day of his life, because he believed sleep was just something you did between responsibilities. My grandma Eleanor passed when I was 10, so my memories of her are soft and blurry like old photographs. But Grandpa Jack was sharp as barbed wire until the very end. My dad, William, was his only son, and my dad had 2 daughters, me and my older sister Claire. Claire is 3 years older than me, and she has always been the sun in my family's solar system. She was the cheerleader, the homecoming queen, the one who got a full ride to Texas A&M. She had blonde hair that never looked messy and a smile that made people want to give her things.
I was the opposite. Brown hair I always kept in a ponytail. Too tall for my age, awkward. The kind of quiet that people mistook for being stuck up in the ranch, but he was never really present after that. He drank more than he should have and spent most evenings in his recliner watching westerns with the volume too loud. Claire was already 17 by then, so she was practically out the door. She left for college and never looked back. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who made Grandpa Jack dinner every night after he came in from the fields. I was the one who learned to fix fences and drive a tractor and check on the horses when his knees got too bad. I did all of that without ever being asked. I just did it because someone had to. I loved that life. I really did. There is something sacred about the smell of hay in the morning and the sound of cattle lowing in the distance. I loved the way Grandpa Jack would sit on the porch with me after sunset, and we would just listen to the quiet. He was not a man of many words, but the words he did say mattered. He told me once that land remembers everything. He said, "You cannot lie to dirt. The dirt knows if you worked it or if you just walked on it." I thought about that a lot after he died.
Claire came home for holidays and birthdays, but she never stayed more than a weekend. She married a guy named Brett her senior year of college. Brett was from a wealthy oil family in Houston. He wore pastel shorts and talked about fantasy football like it was a job. Claire moved to Houston and started posting photos of her new kitchen and her new pool and her new life. I stayed on the ranch. I took online classes for a business degree because Grandpa Jack said I needed something to fall back on. But we both knew I was never going to leave. That land was in my blood, the same way it was in his. When I was 23, I met Eli. He was a farrier who came out to trim the horses' hooves. He drove a beat-up F-150 and had hands that were calloused in a way that made me feel safe. He was kind. He was steady. He asked me out 3 times before I finally said yes, because I was too shy to believe someone like him would want someone like me. But he did. He showed up with coffee and patience and a smile that made my chest feel full. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. He did it in the barn, right where I had bottle-fed a calf the summer I turned 16. He got down on one knee in the hay, and I said yes before he even opened the ring box. Grandpa Jack was sick by then. His lungs were bad. Years of breathing in dust and diesel fumes had caught up with him. But when I told him about the engagement, he smiled wider than I had seen in years. He grabbed my hand with his bony fingers and said, "Morgan, you deserve someone good, and Eli is good." I nodded because I could not speak. I did not want him to see me cry. He passed away 6 months later. It was a Tuesday. I was holding his hand when he went. The hospice nurse said hearing is the last thing to go, so I kept talking to him. I told him I would take care of the ranch. I told him I would make sure the cattle were fed. I told him I loved him. His hand went slack, and I felt something in my chest crack open that I do not think will ever fully heal. The funeral was small. Grandpa Jack did not like crowds. Claire flew in from Houston with Brett and their 2 kids. My dad showed up sober for once. My mom came down from Dallas. A few neighbors, a few old ranch hands. It was simple and honest, and I thought that was the end of it. I thought we would mourn, and then we would figure out the next steps together as a family. I was wrong. The reading of the will happened a week later at a law firm in San Antonio. Mr. Hendricks was Grandpa Jack's lawyer for 40 years. He had gray hair and glasses that kept slipping down his nose, and he looked genuinely sad to be sitting across from us. He opened a folder and started reading. There was a life insurance policy for my dad, $50,000. There was a savings account for Claire, $20,000.
There was a truck for my mom, even though they had been divorced for 14 years, because Grandpa Jack was just that kind of man. Then Mr. Hendricks paused. He adjusted his glasses and looked at me. He said, "Morgan, your grandfather left you the ranch, all 240 acres, the main house, the barns, the equipment, the cattle, everything." The room went silent. Claire stared at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was not anger exactly. It was something colder, something closer to disbelief. My dad started coughing and took a long drink of water. Brett just raised his eyebrows like he was doing math in his head. I did not say anything. I could not. I looked down at my hands. These hands that had pulled weeds and mended fences and held my grandfather as he died. These hands that Claire had never gotten dirty in her entire life. Claire spoke first. She said, "That does not make any sense. Grandpa knew I loved that land. I grew up there too." Mr. Hendricks said, "I am just the messenger, but your grandfather was very clear in his instructions. He updated this will 2 years ago. His mind was sound. He signed everything in front of witnesses." Claire turned to me. Her voice was tight. She said, "Morgan, you are not even married. You are 28 years old. What are you going to do with a ranch by yourself? You cannot run that place alone." I wanted to say that I had been running it alone for years. That she had no idea how many nights I spent checking fences in the dark or pulling calves in the rain. That Grandpa Jack's body gave out long before his spirit did, and I was the one who carried the weight. But I did not say any of that. I just said, "I will figure it out." Brett laughed. It was a small, quiet laugh, but I heard it. He said, "Figure it out? Yeah, okay." The next few weeks were strange. Claire went back to Houston, but she started calling me every day. At first, I thought she was just checking on me, but the calls quickly turned into something else. She wanted to know if I had talked to a real estate agent. She said, "You could get a lot of money for that land. Developers are buying up everything out there. You could sell and put a down payment on a nice place in the city." I told her I was not selling. Grandpa Jack did not spend his whole life building that place just so I could sell it to some developer who would pave over it for a subdivision. Claire got quiet. Then she said, "Well, you cannot afford to keep it either. The property taxes alone are going to kill you, and you do not have the money for repairs. The barn roof is leaking. The fence on the north pasture is falling apart. I know because I saw it at the funeral." She was not wrong about that part. I had been doing the math in my head every night. The ranch generated some income from the cattle, but not enough to cover everything. I had savings, but not enough to last forever. I worked part-time at a feed store in town, just to make ends meet. Eli was a farrier, but his income was inconsistent. He traveled between ranches all over the hill country, and some months were good, and some months were barely anything. We had talked about moving into the main house together after the wedding, but the wedding was still 6 months away, and I was starting to realize how much work it was going to take just to keep things from falling apart. Eli was supportive at first. He said we would figure it out. He said he would help with the repairs. He said we were a team. I believed him. I needed to believe him. But then things started to change. It was small things at first. Eli started coming home later than usual from his jobs. He said the roads were long. He said one of his clients was having trouble with a horse and he had to stay late. I did not think much of it. He had always been a hard worker. I trusted him completely. That was my mistake. The first real sign came on a Friday night in April. Eli said he was going to meet some friends for a drink in Kerrville. He said he would be back by midnight. I stayed up waiting for him because I could not sleep. The house felt too big without Grandpa Jack. The wind was blowing through the oaks, and the whole place creaked like it was talking to me. 1 in the morning came, then 2. I called Eli, and it went straight to voicemail. I texted him, no response.
He walked through the door at 4 in the morning, smelling like perfume that was not mine. I asked him whose perfume that was. He looked confused for a second, then said it was probably just someone at the bar. Some girl bumped into him and spilled her drink. He said I was being paranoid. He said he loved me. He kissed my forehead and went to shower. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But something in my gut told me to pay attention. And I had learned a long time ago that my gut was usually right. I started watching more closely after that. Eli was distant. He was on his phone all the time, and he turned the screen away when I walked by. He stopped helping with the ranch work. He used to come over on weekends and fix fences or help me move hay bales. Now he had excuses. His back hurt. He had to work. He was tired. I was doing everything alone again, and it felt familiar in the worst way. Then my sister Claire showed up one weekend in May. She said she wanted to help me go through some of Grandpa Jack's things. She brought Brett and the kids. They pulled into the driveway in a brand new Escalade, and the kids ran around the yard like they had never seen grass before. Claire hugged me and said, "Oh my God, Morgan, you look exhausted. You need to take better care of yourself." I told her I was fine. I was not fine, but I did not want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me struggle. Claire has always had this way of making me feel like a charity case. Like I was the little sister who needed to be rescued from herself. She spent the afternoon going through Grandpa Jack's closet. She took his old boots and his leather jacket and a few photographs. She kept looking at me with this sad smile. Then she sat me down in the kitchen and said, "Look, I know you do not want to hear this, but you need to think about selling the ranch. You are drowning, Morgan. I can see it. And Eli is not exactly helping from what I can tell." I asked her what she meant by that. She hesitated. Then she said, "I do not want to start any drama, but Brett saw Eli in Houston last month, at a restaurant, with some woman." My blood went cold. I asked her when. She said about 3 weeks ago. Brett was there for a business dinner. He saw Eli having dinner with a blonde woman. They were sitting close. Brett thought it was weird, so he took a picture. She showed me her phone. The picture was grainy because it was taken from across the restaurant, but I could see Eli clearly. He was wearing the blue button-down I bought him for his birthday. He was leaning across the table with that smile I knew so well. The woman across from him was beautiful. She had long blonde hair and a tan, and she was laughing at something he said. Her hand was resting on top of his. I felt like someone had kicked me in the chest. I could not breathe. Claire put her hand on my arm and said, "I am so sorry. I did not want to be the one to tell you, but you deserve to know." I asked her why she was telling me now. Why not tell me the second Brett took the picture? She said she did not want to hurt me. She said she was hoping it was nothing. But then she heard from a friend that Eli had been seen in Houston again, multiple times, and she could not keep it to herself anymore. I thanked her. I do not know why I thanked her. It just came out. She hugged me and said she was there for me no matter what. Then she and Brett packed up the kids and left. I stood in the driveway watching their Escalade disappear down the dirt road, and I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. That night, I confronted Eli. He came over to the ranch after work. I told him I knew about Houston. I told him about the restaurant. I showed him the picture on my phone. His face went pale. Then it went red. Then he got angry. He said Claire was lying. He said Brett was lying. He said the picture could have been anyone. He said I was letting my sister get in my head, and she was just trying to tear us apart because she wanted the ranch for herself. I wanted that to be true. I wanted it so badly. Claire and I had never been close, but I did not think she would lie about something like this. But Eli was so convincing. He grabbed my hands and looked me in the eyes and said, "Morgan, I love you. I would never cheat on you. You are my whole world. Please do not let your jealous sister destroy what we have." I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to believe him because the alternative was too painful. I told him okay. I told him I was sorry for accusing him. He held me, and I cried, and I thought that was the end of it. It was not the end of it. It was just the beginning. The next few weeks were a blur of denial and hard work. I threw myself into the ranch because it was the only thing that made sense. I fixed the fence on the north pasture myself. I patched the barn roof with help from a neighbor.
I started looking into agricultural tax exemptions to lower my property tax bill. I was doing everything I could to hold on to the only place that had ever felt like home. Eli was distant again. He stopped coming over entirely. He said he was busy with work. He said he had a big job near Fredericksburg that was taking all his time. I called him one night and a woman answered the phone. She said, "Hello?" in a sleepy voice. I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time. I called back 10 minutes later. Eli answered this time. I asked him who that was. He said it was no one, just a wrong number. He said I must have dialed wrong. I told him I did not dial wrong. I called his number, and a woman answered. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Morgan, you are losing it. You are stressed about the ranch, and you are taking it out on me. I cannot do this right now. I will call you tomorrow." He hung up. He did not call tomorrow. He did not call for 3 days.
When he finally showed up at the ranch, he looked different. His face was harder somehow. He did not kiss me when he walked in. He just stood in the kitchen with his arms crossed and said, "We need to talk." I asked him what was going on. He said he had been doing a lot of thinking. He said he was not sure if we were right for each other. He said I had changed since Grandpa Jack died. He said I was too focused on the ranch and not focused enough on us. I stared at him. I asked him if there was someone else. He did not answer right away. Then he said there was. He said her name was Kayla. He met her at a bar in Houston 6 months ago. She was a real estate agent. She was fun and easy to be around, and she did not have all this baggage. Baggage? He called my grandfather's death baggage. He called my family, my home, my whole life baggage. I did not cry. I wanted to cry, but I was so angry that the tears would not come. I asked him how long. He said 6 months. 6 months. He had been cheating on me for half of our engagement. He had proposed to me while he was already sleeping with someone else. He had looked me in the eyes and said, "I love you," while his phone was full of messages to her. I told him to leave. He said he wanted his things. I opened the front door and pointed to his truck. I said, "Get out." He said, "Morgan, come on." I said, "Get out before I call the sheriff." He left. He drove away and I watched his taillights disappear down the dirt road, and I thought about how many times I had watched people leave that driveway. My mom, my sister, my dad in his own way, and now Eli. I fell apart after that. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I stopped answering calls from anyone. Claire called me 17 times in 2 days. I let them all go to voicemail. My dad called once. He left a message saying he heard about Eli and he was sorry, and if I wanted to talk, he was there. I did not call him back. I spent a whole week in the main house alone. I did not even go outside. I just sat in Grandpa Jack's recliner and stared at the wall. The cattle probably thought they had been abandoned. The horses were standing at the gate waiting for me. I did not care. I could not care. I had given everything to that ranch, and to Eli, and to my family. And what did I have to show for it? I had nothing. I was nothing. On the 8th day, I got a letter in the mail. It was for Mr. Hendricks, the lawyer. The envelope was thick and official. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a notice that someone had filed a petition to contest Grandpa Jack's will. The petitioner was my sister Claire. I read the letter 3 times. Claire was claiming that Grandpa Jack was not of sound mind when he signed the will. She was claiming that I had unduly influenced him. She was claiming that the ranch should be divided equally between his heirs. She wanted half.
No, she wanted more than half. She wanted the whole thing sold and the proceeds split 3 ways, between her, my dad, and me. My dad, he had signed on to the petition. He was backing Claire. I sat down on the kitchen floor. The linoleum was cold under me. I remembered standing in that kitchen with Grandpa Jack when I was 12. He was teaching me how to make his famous chili. He said, Morgan, you have to taste as you go. You cannot just follow the recipe. You have to feel it. I asked him what it was supposed to feel like. He said it should feel like home. I started crying then. Not the quiet tears I had been holding back for weeks. I mean full body sobbing. The kind of crying that makes your ribs ache and your throat raw. I cried for Grandpa Jack. I cried for Eli. I cried for the sister who was trying to take everything from me. I cried for my dad who chose her over me. I cried for the girl I used to be, who believed that hard work and love were enough. They were not enough. They were never enough. I called Mr. Hendricks the next morning. He told me not to panic. He said Claire's claim was weak. Grandpa Jack had been evaluated by a doctor 6 months before he died. The doctor had signed off on his mental capacity. There were witnesses to the will signing. He said she was just trying to scare me into settling. But I knew Claire. She did not do things like this to scare people. She did things like this to win. And she always won. She had been winning her whole life. Mr.
Hendricks said I needed to hire my own lawyer. He gave me a name, a woman named Sarah Cortez in San Antonio. He said she was tough and she knew ranch law and she would not let Claire push me around. I called Sarah that afternoon. She answered on the second ring. I told her everything. The ranch, the will, Claire, Eli, the cheating, the picture, the phone call, the way my own father had turned against me. Sarah listened without interrupting. When I was done, she said, "Morgan, I need you to hear me very clearly. Do not sell anything. Do not sign anything. Do not move off that property. Do you understand? You stay put. You are the rightful owner until a judge says otherwise, and I do not think a judge is going to say otherwise." I asked her what it would cost. She told me her retainer. It was more money than I had in my bank account. I told her I could not afford it. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "Your grandfather hired me for some things over the years. He was a good man. I will take your case on a payment plan. We will figure it out." I cried again. I was tired of crying, but I could not stop. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I woke up every morning at 5 and worked the ranch until my body gave out. I fed the cattle, I checked the fences, I repaired what I could. I sold a few head to cover the taxes. I drove to San Antonio twice a week to meet with Sarah. We built our case, we gathered evidence, we deposed witnesses. Claire's lawyers were aggressive.
They tried to make me look like a greedy granddaughter who had manipulated an old man. They brought up the fact that I had lived on the ranch rent-free for years. They brought up that I had quit school to stay home. They made it sound like I had been scheming this whole time. Sarah tore them apart in cross-examination. She brought out the doctor's report. She brought out letters Grandpa Jack had written to his own lawyer explaining exactly why he was leaving the ranch to me. In his own handwriting, he said, "Claire has her life in Houston. She does not want this land. She never did. Morgan has been here. Morgan has worked this land. Morgan will not pave it over for a strip mall. That is why she gets it." I had never seen those letters before. Sarah found them in Mr. Hendricks' files. I read them in her office, and I felt Grandpa Jack sitting right next to me. He had known. He had known Claire would try something. He had planned for it. He had protected me from beyond the grave. The case never went to trial. Claire's lawyers advised her to drop the petition. The evidence was too strong. She would lose, and she would have to pay my legal fees. So she withdrew. She called me the next day. She said, "Congratulations." Her voice was ice. She said, "I hope you are happy with your ranch. I hope it keeps you warm at night." I said, "Thank you, Claire." I meant it. Not because I was happy, but because I was grateful she had finally shown me who she really was.
Things with Eli got worse before they got better. He started posting photos with Kayla on social media. They were at a lake house. They were at a concert. They were at a wedding. Every photo was a knife in my chest. I stopped looking after a while. I blocked him on everything. But the damage was done. I spent months wondering what I did wrong. What was wrong with me? Why I was not enough. Therapy helped. I found a woman named Dr. Reyes in Bernie. She specialized in family trauma and betrayal. I sat on her couch every Thursday afternoon and I talked. I talked about my mom leaving. I talked about my dad disappearing into his recliner. I talked about Claire's constant need to be better than me. I talked about Eli and the way he made me feel like I was too much and not enough at the same time. Dr. Reyes asked me one day what I wanted for myself. Not for the ranch, not for my family, not for anyone else. What did Morgan want? I did not know how to answer that. I had spent my whole life taking care of other people, other people's dreams, other people's needs, other people's expectations. I had never stopped to ask myself what I wanted. I thought about it for a long time, and then I realized I wanted to stay. I wanted to keep the ranch, not because Grandpa Jack left it to me, not because Claire wanted to take it, but because I loved it. I loved the way the sun looked coming up over the hills. I loved the sound of the horses in the morning. I loved knowing that I was carrying on something my grandfather built with his own 2 hands. That was not baggage. That was purpose. So I stayed. I kept working. I got a small loan and fixed the barn roof properly. I rebuilt the fence on the north pasture. I started selling beef directly to local restaurants instead of through the auction house. It was slow. It was hard. There were days I wanted to give up. There were nights I cried myself to sleep. But I kept going. And something started to shift. People in town noticed. The neighbors started treating me differently. Not like the shy girl who used to work at the feed store, but like a rancher, like someone who belonged there. Old Man Hendricks down the road offered to help me with the hay season. The Wilkinsons invited me to their daughter's wedding. I started to feel like I was part of something, like I had a place. Claire and I do not talk anymore. She sent me a letter a few months ago. It was full of apologies and excuses and blame. She said she was sorry, but she also said I should understand why she did it. She said she was just trying to protect her kid's future. She said she felt left out. She said Grandpa Jack never loved her as much as he loved me. I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a box with the other things I did not want to think about. My dad came to see me last month. He showed up at the ranch in his old truck. He looked older than I remembered. His hands were shaking.
He sat on the porch with me, and we watched the sunset in silence for a long time. Then he said he was sorry. He said Claire convinced him. She told him I was going to sell the ranch anyway. She told him I was just trying to cut everyone out. He said he believed her because it was easier than believing the truth. I asked him what the truth was. He said, "The truth is, I was not there for you. I was not there for Grandpa. I was not there for anyone. And Claire is just like me. She takes the easy road. But you, Morgan, you took the hard road. Every single time. That is why he left you the ranch. Because you earned it." I did not say anything. I just let him sit there. We watched the stars come out. He left after an hour. He said he would try to do better. I told him I hoped he would. But I did not hold my breath. I am still here. I am still on the ranch. It is fall now, and the air is starting to get that crispness that makes you want to drink hot coffee and wear flannel. The cattle are fat and healthy. The horses are good. The barn roof does not leak anymore. Eli married Kayla 2 months ago. I saw the announcement on her friend's social media. She was wearing white. He was wearing that same blue button-down. I felt something when I saw it, but it was not sadness. It was relief. I dodged a bullet. He was never my person. He was just a lesson I had to learn the hard way. I am not dating anyone right now. I am not looking. I am learning to be alone without being lonely.
It is harder than I thought it would be, but it is also better. I'm starting to like myself, the real me, the one who fixes fences and drives tractors and cries in the kitchen and gets back up anyway. Last night I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The moon was almost full. I could hear the coyotes in the distance. I thought about Grandpa Jack. I thought about what he said about land remembering everything. I think he was right. The dirt knows I worked it. The dirt knows I stayed. The dirt knows I am still here. And for now, that is enough.